Lida is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or
Nazarthius and Yeet Glazer met at an agreed-upon location on the 19th of April, 2025. Naze went straight to the point.
Whoop-de-doo. Hello. Hello. Hello, boys. I'm just bringing my dog in here, and I'll continue the video.
Work with me, he said. Work with my family. Naze was the leader of the Luceria family, a group that fashioned itself as a mafia on Democracycraft, a Minecraft server that allowed players to elect their own politicians. Yeet, on the other hand, was a police sergeant, a member of the server's law enforcement, sworn to protect and uphold the laws written by its elected politicians. Who's your family? Yeet asked. And work? How? Well, we kill and intimidate, Naze responded matter-of-factly. We have personal bankers, police, and politicians. We work in both and statecraft. Are you trying to hire me?
Hey, how you can intimidate when you have no actual... Is that serious?
To the mafia, Yeet asked. Maybe, but I term it as family. Come to the dark side. Together, we will control. Two players moved to Naze's mansion to continue their discussions, be able to speak more freely without them. Yes or no, Yeet, he asked. So you said we get to kill. The police works for us, Naze responded. Well, suddenly, gunshots heard from inside the house. Yeet acts without hesitation. Naze, you've been charged with 8 counts of murder and 1 count of bank robbery. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do can be used against you. If you wish... it was a trap. It'd been set up all along. For the server's law enforcement, it was another win against a player who had been in their sights for some time. 1 month before, the DOJ caught Naze...
Sting operation in the Minecraft?
Sting operation for running a self-described tax evasion scheme, offering one client help to hide 2.6 million Democracycraft dollars, or around $1,000 at real money trading rates, from the server's tax authorities. How did the DOJ cotton on to him so quickly? Was it because he went around the Discord server posting ads that read, "Better call Naze, don't pay taxes and don't go to jail," or "Get out of jail, make 30% profit"? Or was it because the client he reached out to, Avanish 2008, was actually the server's deputy finance minister and the Treasury's head of compliance? Regardless, one thing stood out. Naze wasn't very good at being a criminal.
So why you're really that interested? Usually I have more ingenious players you talk about.
Naze may have called himself the Don of the Luceria family, but to some, he appeared more like the leader of a ragtag group of misfits, whose accomplishments included briefly disrupting the president's press conferences. The police had better things to worry about, like investigating reports of a heist from the server's largest bank, Vanguard National Bank. A player using an exploit with the bank's trading platform stole 9 million Democracycraft dollars, $3,600 from the bank, quickly laundering it by making wire transfers to at least half a dozen bank accounts owned by him and other players. The heist had all of the hallmarks of organized crime. Foreign currency was purchased, fake paper trails were deployed, and money mules were used. This wasn't the work of an amateur player. This was the work of someone who had deep financial connections. Move over Naze, a new criminal mastermind in town, and his name is... Wait, what the hell? And his name is... Wait.
Naze?
What the hell? Authorities to follow likely wasn't the most sound. Leaving behind a digital trail for the Minecraft authorities to follow likely wasn't the most sound course of action Naze could have taken, and arguably neither is leaving your personal browsing habits exposed without this video sponsor, private internet access. While you're probably not running a Minecraft-based racketeering group, that doesn't stop your ISP from tracking all of the sites you visit and selling that data on to advertisers. A 2021 report by the US FTC, for example, found that a significant number of ISPs they studied shared real-time location data with third parties, including where people lived, worked, and went for drug rehab. PIA is a VPN that masks your IP address and adds a layer of privacy to your internet connection, allowing you to shift your trust away from your ISP to an open source provider with a no logs policy and an excellent rating on Trustpilot based on over 10,000 reviews. With just one subscription, you can use PIA on a multitude of platforms, such as Windows, iOS, and Android, on an unlimited number of devices. This allows you to protect your entire household and change their virtual location to access content, such as streaming services from over 90 different countries and all US states. There's little risk to signing up, as every plan comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. And thanks to PIA, you can get an 83% discount by using the link provided below. That's just a little over $2 a month, and they'll even throw in an extra 4 months for free.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
Impossible.
Nina can't code.
Interesting. Can it generate reports?
It can now.
Nice.
So you're saying we can all build apps now?
Yeah.
I'm on lunch.
I gotta make a call.
I'll be in my office.
Just built an inventory tracker.
Protein calculator.
Book sharing app.
A workflow manager that
Tracks who still owes the.
Naze and Diro remember the interview very well. So first off, I'd like to ask, why did your client transfer $20,000 to Rassel Casino? Naze's lawyer responded, I would like to ask you, Inspector. 1. Did the Department of Justice conspire to damage my client's reputation or freeze their funds without any proof? 2. Can I finally see the reason why you are wasting both my client's time and mine? Naze was completely blindsided by the interview. Just a week ago, he and Diarev had worked on a tax evasion scheme to help wealthy clients hide their funds by depositing money across multiple banks. They even had one client deposit 2.6 million Democracy Graph dollars with them. But now, Diarev was sitting on the other side of the interrogation table, and it took a while for Naze to realize what was going on.
What?
Did you get investigated, or are you investigating? Naze asked privately. I'm a DOJ investigator, Diarev responded. But aren't you getting investigated too? No, I was undercover. Oh, fuck. The Attorney General, who led the operation, described the case as being served on a silver platter, because the sting, at least from their perspective, couldn't have gone any better.
So
Naze attracted the DOJ's attention the moment he started posting ads telling people they could avoid paying taxes or going to jail. The thing that really cemented his downfall was when he messaged, completely unsolicited, the Deputy Finance Minister and Compliance Chief for the Treasury, Vanish 2008, asking him whether he was interested in not paying his taxes. May you explain? Asked Diarev, pointing at the messages. Naze's lawyer was not impressed. As far as she was concerned, what Naze had done was no different from what all of the other banks had been doing. So contemptuous was she of the DOJ's so-called operation against a client that she stopped answering police's questions midway through. Okay, do you understand that deleting messages is obstruction of justice? Do you need a napkin? You can buy one at my store. Oh wait, you can't because you are embargoed. No, may you answer my question first? No one cares about your question. Okay, I'm not your mother and won't answer anything. Ask your mum for a napkin, okay? And leave my
Why did you
client
ask me for a
alone.
napkin?
This hearing is over. Now, go back to your DOJ kindergarten. Do you understand that tax evasion is a crime? Whee! Do you understand what constitutes a conspiracy? Yeah, that's cool, but who asked? I hope you understand that you are showing zero respect for the legal system and any sort of legal process required. The Attorney General interjected. I suggest we keep this interrogation to its topic if you don't want to be hit with a defamation lawsuit. I suggest you kneel and suck my boots. This hearing is over. We're the ones deciding that. All right, guys, if that's all you want to say, then you might as well tell your client to get comfy, because he's going to be spending a lot of time in jail if you don't start answering questions.
How? He's a right. How? It's a game. It's just a game. Play your Minecraft server.
And believe me when I say that the fines won't be light based on the evidence we have right now. So what's it going to be? I wonder what Congress would think about your investigative methods sometimes. For the DOJ, the interview wasn't going anywhere. There was no way in hell they were extracting a confession. For Nate, the interview marked a monstrous betrayal. Dirov, he thought, was one of the little guys, just like him, by in a dog-eat-dog world. All Nays wanted to do was to help his friend, the owner of a tiny bank, take on the big guys by becoming the Saul Goodman of Minecraft. But Dirov stabbed him in the back, destroying his dreams under the orders of the Department of Justice. Why did they target him, he thought? What was he doing that the other banks were doing? Why weren't they going after the big guys, the corrupt bankers, the dishonest politicians? Why go after newbies like him? Nays would never forgive the DOJ for this day. It was the beginning of a vendetta. According to Nays, the sting operation left him broke. All of the money he was supposed to be making turned out not to be real, and any money he did make was supposedly spent on legal fees. Nays, any money he did make, money he was supposed to be making turned out not to be real, and any money he did make was supposedly spent on legal fees. Nays needed money. He needed a job. He eventually landed a job at Quark News, a financial news outlet. There, he met the newspaper's editor, Nimq, who was curious about his previous ventures. The two began to talk and eventually bonded over their quote-unquote shared disdain for Dirov. Nimq opened up to Nays and shared his story. A few months ago, he created a bot that could trade securities automatically. The trading platform he used, Vanguard Market Access, was a website set up by Vanguard, the server's largest bank, to allow players to bet on the price of real-life stocks using virtual money. If the stock price went down, the bank won the bet. If the stock price went up, the customer won the bet. In a stroke of genius, Nimq noticed a flaw with how market access was implemented. When the price of a real-life stock changed, the website didn't immediately update. It had a small but noticeable delay. Capitalizing on this, Nimq created a bot that continually compared the prices of real-life stocks on Yahoo Finance and Vanguard Market Access. When there was a discrepancy, the bot would automatically execute trades, knowing with 100% certainty that a stock price was going up or down. By the time Vanguard realized what was going on, Nimq's bot made an absurd 850 million Democracycraft dollars, notionally 345,000 US dollars at real money trading rates. The bank, which itself was worth around 33,000 US dollars, if its accounting records were to be believed anyway, had no way of paying out that amount of money.
Essentially,
the bank consequently
a
froze.
trillion times more value than the bankers were collapsing it.
His account and accused him of committing fraud. Nimq then dropped a bombshell. While testing his trading bot, he stumbled on a bug that allowed him to generate infinite money on market access. Believe it or not, this incredibly rushed website was filled to the brim with game-breaking bugs, including ones that allowed players to withdraw money they never had. When Nays learnt of this exploit, he begged Nimq to teach him how to do it. Please tell me your secret. No. I'll even write up an NDA, he offered. A legally binding one. No chance, Nimq responded. I have more to lose than to gain. Unlike Nays, who joined the server publicly announcing his intentions to engage in criminal activities, Nimq actually had a reputation to uphold as a respected trader within Democracycraft's financial sector. He couldn't be seen teaching some random kid how to rob a major bank senseless with an infinite money glitch. But as Nays looked up to him with starry eyes, Nimq thought about it a bit more. If Nimq offered to multiply Nays' money with the exploit, would Nays pay him 40% of it? Nays quickly agreed. Once Nays got his money, did he know how to pay Nimq his 40% cut without immediately alerting the banks and the police? No, he didn't. It seemed like Naze still had a lot to learn.
This cookie dough parfait
Yeah,
is my
you got
new
it.
favorite
So much
high
better.
protein snack, all thanks to Hungry
You got
Root. Being healthy and having a sweet
Thank
tooth used to
you.
be hard, but with
Oh,
Money laundering is the act of making dirty money, that is, money earned through crime, look like clean money, money earned legitimately. Using an exploit to withdraw money you never had was obviously a crime, and if the two wanted to get away with it, they needed a way to launder that money. Imagine if NimQ generated something ridiculous, like 100 million Democracy Craft dollars, and Naze immediately went to the bank to withdraw all of that money. What do you think would happen? Well, for one, the bank staff would immediately notice and freeze his bank account. And two, the police would probably be called, and they'd throw him back into jail. The trick then was to generate the money in a way the bank wouldn't notice, at least initially. For
My
example,
mother-in-law.
2 payments could be made on the 19th of March 2025, a $21,000 one and a $335,000 one. On the 21st, multiple payments could be made, totaling around $3.3 million. On the 22nd, 3 payments could be made, a $573,000 one, a $500,000 one, and another $500,000 one. You get the idea. Once the money was placed into his account, Naze needed to layer the money, make a ton of complex transactions that would make it very difficult for police and forensic accountants to trace where the money went. NimQ gave Naze some ideas. Vanguard had wire transfer agreements with other banks, including Volt and Voyager, which allowed Naze to transfer his Vanguard funds to multiple banks with a simple Discord command. With the money distributed across multiple banks, each institution would only be able to see a portion of the total transactions Naze was making. Once there, the money could be moved further. Money mules, players willing to lend their Vanguard accounts to help, could be transferred a portion of the funds to make even more transfers. Vanguard to Voyager, Voyager to Rex, Rex to Volt. Once sufficiently layered, the money mules could then withdraw that money and pay Naze in cash.
the reason why I'm so silent is because I'm trying to understand money laundering, offshore tax accounts, and
Now, it was important for Naze to move the money around in a way that involved as many innocent players as possible. This because the more innocent players were involved in Naze's transactions, the harder it would be for the police to who were the innocent bystanders to play games of poker. MQ and Naze would be at the table with other players. Naze would make massive intentionally fold, and NimQ would leave with a bunch of winnings. Other players were also likely to win, but that was the point, because now the police would have no idea which of the winners, if any, were in on it. Another way Naze could do this would be to simply buy as many things as possible. Netherite blocks were always a good bet, because they could be stored in chests all over the server, including the chests of other accomplices. Artwork and real estate were also good, because wealthy players often paid a premium for them, even if for nothing else other than the vanity of owning pixel canvases and luxury apartments. Once the layering was complete, the money needed
gambling, artwork, real estate. And netherite.
to be integrated. It needed to be reintroduced into the economy so Naze could spend it more freely. Foreign currency was always good for this. Democracy Craft wasn't the only democracy server on Minecraft. Many others had a similar premise. Multinational banks and cosmopolitan players were more than willing to buy Naze's Democracy Craft dollars in exchange for Statecraft pounds and CityRP dollars. Better yet, as servers like CityRP, entirely independent from Democracy Craft, with different owners and different governments, Democracy Craft's authorities had no jurisdiction there. Any search warrants, asset freezing orders, and court injunctions would be unenforceable in CityRP. One final way in which money could be integrated was the use of property trusts. A trust is created when one person holds real estate on someone else's behalf. NIMQ could set up a holding company, let's say Secondhand Holdings LLC, to hold properties on Naze's behalf.
Secondhand Holdings LLC. And
The name's a bit on the nose, but don't worry about it. As the trustee of the properties, Secondhand Holdings, or more accurately, its manager NIMQ, would show up as the quote-unquote owner of the properties on the server's publicly accessible land registry. But Naze, as the beneficiary, remained the true owner of the properties, and he could tell NIMQ to sell the properties when it became safe to do so. In the meantime, NIMQ could manufacture a bunch of fake contracts, ostensibly for property maintenance, for which Naze would have to pay the company. As the company was owned by NIMQ, it meant that Naze was able to pay directly under false pretenses.
Ready to give your screen a heroic upgrade? Download free exclusive Supergirl movie wallpapers.
making infinite money.
NIMQ's plan was truly an inspired bit of criminal enterprise, and Naze was very keen to get started. Maybe even a little too keen, because despite acknowledging the need to keep withdrawal amounts relatively small, he proceeded to make a $1.9 million transfer to Voyager Bank on the 23rd of March 2025, just 5 days into the operation. Laudalio.
And that goes the level of competence coming from Naze. But it was mostly just NIMQ going through him as a second-hand accomplice. Oh yeah, turn on the video.
The bank's CEO
Yeah.
knew something was up almost immediately. What the fuck? Texted Laudalio, forwarding the transaction receipt to Freeze. We should do something. Laudalio, shall we say, had hands-on experience with money laundering. He knew a ham-fisted laundering attempt when he saw one. The Attorney General responded, "I know, right? This motherfucker." The DOJ was now seemingly on the case. The acting finance minister was alerted when, 2 days later, Naze approached him, asking whether he had any properties to sell. Where exactly was Naze getting his money from? A flurry of correspondence followed, and the banks began to take action. Vault froze Naze's account on the 26th of March. Voyager followed suit 3 days later. On the 1st of April 2025, Vanguard finally got its act together and unveiled its massive lawsuit against Naze. The defendant, Naze, has committed a tremendous fraud, much larger, I believe, than the likes of any other crime we've seen in the history of Democracycraft, the bank's counsel began. Throughout the last 2 weeks or so, Naze has disregarded all common sense decencies, abandoned moral justice, and more importantly, blatantly chose to disobey the law and to give in to greed and his own desires. In this time, Naze has stolen more than $9 million from Vanguard & Co. through fraudulent stock trading. The bank has
That's
been
funny.
unable to resolve.
At that point, that's kind of for getting scammed $9 million democracy crap dollars. $9 million.
Resolve this matter privately, as more than 80% of these stolen funds have already been transferred to other citizens and institutions, and we require the courts to provide a swift and fair judgment on the fraudster known as Naze. The bank provided receipts detailing every transaction made. The bank provided records explaining how Naze could have generated this money. The complaint was comprehensive and damning. There was no way Naze was winning this case. The speed at which the banks and law enforcement responded probably took the two by surprise, because Naze and NIMQ were still in the process of moving money around. If Naze was going to lose the lawsuit, the two thought the best course of action would be to move everything Naze owned away from his account, so the bank would have nothing to take once they won the lawsuit. Naze would then be able to declare bankruptcy on the debt and start anew. The two, however, needed more time to move the money around, and Nays knew just the person to call. Motion to dismiss. The defendant respectfully moves this court to dismiss the lawsuit under Rule 5.5. The plaintiff's claims for relief lack any legal basis and must be dismissed. Objection. Your Honour, the purpose of an amicus brief is to offer the court impartial analysis. Instead, the author has chosen to focus on civil procedure, effectively acting as supplemental counsel. I move to strike the brief. Objection. Your Honour, opposing counsel has knowingly misrepresented the facts under oath by falsely claiming that Mr. Nays is deported. This is demonstrably untrue, and I am submitting evidence confirming that my client remains in the country. We move to strike this false assertion from the record and a consideration of sanctions against opposing counsel for perjury. Motion. The defendant respectfully moves this court to strike all instances of the word fraud. Motion. The defendant respectfully moves this court to strike all instances of the word fraud or variations thereof from the record. This court
Why are you laughing?
strike all instances of the word fraud.
Okay,
Motion.
you read
The
it.
defendant respectfully moves this court to strike all instances of the word fraud or variations thereof from the record. Firstly, the defendant Nays is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Secondly, the repeated use of the term fraud by the plaintiff is prejudicial and could unduly influence the court's judgment before all evidence has been presented. Thirdly, the defendant has not been criminally convicted of fraud, making it an unsubstantiated allegation rather than established fact. Fourthly, the use of the term fraud without a criminal conviction could be considered scandalous and impertinent, as it unfairly tarnishes the defendant's reputation. May we respond to this ridiculous motion, Your Honour? You may, but the insult was unnecessary. Any future attacks on opposing counsel will have you held in contempt. Nimq got his cut. Sure, it wasn't the 40% he asked for, not even close, but he managed to get some cash and properties through his holding company, the stock exchange, and casino. Nays also got his cut. The banks may have frozen some of his money, but most of it, it seemed, had been laundered successfully.
Really?
He now had cash, properties, and other assets stored across the server. He even had a stash abroad. With funds in hand, Nays was now able to pursue his dream. He was going to start a mafia.
I am Winnie Gabriel, a professional basketball player, an Olympian, and a former refugee. Brutal war and violence threaten millions of innocent.
What's your opinion on Nays? I asked Q, a former member of the Luceria family. Like, did you like him? Yes, Q responded. But later I noticed that he was stupid. Nays was, in many ways, an unorthodox leader of an organized crime group. While many mafias opted to bind themselves with the conspiracy of silence, Nays went the other way by openly posting ads urging people to join his family. Absolutely fabulous starter payment for everyone, he posted. Looking for an arms dealer who's quick and delivers. Looking for muscles. You can be anybody that knows how to use a gun properly. Looking for people with banking knowledge. Looking for politicians. Looking for campaigners. And the main thing we are looking for is business-minded people with business knowledge and experience. And in case the ad wasn't clear enough, he even produced posters of himself with a bunch of guns. Join our family today. A link to the Mafia's Discord server was provided below. It took Nays' right-hand man to politely explain to his boss that open recruitment risked bringing practically every undercover cop in existence to the Mafia's Discord server. It's fine, he'll just do a background check on everyone, don't worry about it. For all of the faults with Nays' recruitment strategy, though, one thing became clear. It worked. Players across the server began to join the Lucerian banner. One major driver of this growth was Vanguard's highly publicized lawsuit against Nays. With many players being unaware of Nimq's involvement, many attributed the heist's work to Nays alone, an act that made him a celebrity overnight.
So no one realized he was an idiot who was racing why the Operation fumbled and didn't know that was a Nimq scheme. ingenious Nemesis scheme, but a Nemesis scheme, not a Naze scheme. A Naze scheme crashes it before it starts. What you did is have the possibility of it actually working out come in truth.
Ever keen to bask in public infamy, Naze went on a public relations blitz to frame his actions as a moral crusade. He was going to fuck the financial system to give to the poor. He was going to protect all those underrepresented in society. He was going to fight the corrupt DOJ that targeted new players like him. And his speeches won over absolutely nobody, with his members joining for other reasons. Q said they joined because they were already friends with Naze, and they were gifted a free plot of land, which won them over. Big Papa 140 said they joined because they wanted access to other criminal ways to get money, essentially using the Mafia as a LinkedIn network for Minecraft criminals. Other reasons included needing money to get started on the server, needing money to fuel a gambling addiction, wanting to indiscriminately kill civilians while getting paid for it, wanting the intellectual challenge of teaching a kid not to self-incriminate themselves in other people's DMs, with evidence attached, and simply doing it for the love of the game. Some players even had intentions to defraud the Mafia itself. One mid-ranking member, Purple, recalled how they were tasked with coordinating quote-unquote terrorist attacks on the server. To incentivize their performance, Naze offered bonuses for successful operations. So, naturally, Purple reportedly lied about many of the spectacular murder sprees they supposedly committed, getting subordinates to fake screenshots and reports evidencing massacres that never took place. All in all, according to Purple, over 70% of the attacks they were paid for never actually happened. Thanks for the pay, though. Despite everyone...
So got tricked. So got tricked into paying for free.
Seemingly differing motivations for joining the Naze Mafia, though, the family managed to hold itself together. And this was due, in some part, to the group's ability to deliver some high-profile successes. There were the indiscriminate mass killings, of course. Naze repeatedly claimed that his Mafia committed over 500 murders. But the group also carried out more targeted attacks, such as allegedly bombing the Save Marketplace in Statecraft not once, not twice, not twice, not so nice, but set twice, an act that would fall out of character.
See, he got banned. He bombed the market.
There's big news.
He banned the business district. He exiled them for 30 days.
From America's #1 nicotine pouch brand. Flavor is here. Live boldly with Black Cherry.
The family's more enduring successes, however, were in white-collar crime. They bribed a civil servant to pilfer documents from Vault Bank and the Treasury. They interfered with a local mayoral election by offering bribes to players to vote a certain way. They hijacked a major news publication to pump out defamatory anti-DOJ articles in a bid to get its leadership to resign. And the family wasn't done yet, as they came up with increasingly ambitious plans to fleece players out of their money. Naze didn't brainstorm these ideas alone. His targeted recruitment of business players allowed him to assemble a cracked team of confidants who really knew what they were doing. There was JGame7816, the founding Underdon, an alleged former member of the 1008 Mafia, experienced in organized crime and experienced in its challenges. There was
Get. Don't worry if you're wondering what I was doing. I was noticing smoke on our stove. It was flaming.
Toad King, the lawyer, and skillful technician in his own right, responsible for independently hacking Vanguard market access, he was fondly remembered by multiple members as being their get-out-of-jail-free card, the guy who could fight the DOJ on their own turf. There was under the radar the financial strategist, Naze's so-called other half, the man whom Naze confessed he trusted blindly. And finally, there was Mega Minor M, the banker and conduit with Democracy Craft's financial sector. A wealthy player in his own right, he allegedly facilitated the laundering of Naze's funds using his own bank, Nexus Bank. The family leadership went back and forth discussing some of their ideas. Maybe they could create an equity firm and embezzle the funds from an IPO. Maybe they could create a fake insurance company that used bankruptcy fraud to avoid paying out claims. Maybe they could even get one of their own appointed as Statecraft's finance minister, hijacking the server's central bank to serve their own interests. Eventually, though, they settled on a plan. They were going to do a classic pump and dump scheme. They were going to acquire as many shares as they could in one specific company. They were going to pump the price up by whatever means necessary, and they were going to sell their stocks before it all came crashing back down. But as they began to implement their scheme, a concerning development had emerged. The DOJ was investigating them. A mafia member on the DOJ server had access to an external Discord plugin that allowed them to see the names of private channels, and they revealed that the DOJ had channels for Naze, Naze illicit substances, Naze fraud, and Luceria family mafia. The family had to proceed with caution. The feds were watching. Unbeknownst to them, though, the DOJ's investigation was nearly complete. They had the screenshots, the chat logs, and the private text messages. One of them, as it turned out, was working with the DOJ. And what they wanted was immunity from prosecution.
Hey man, listen up closely. I know lately you're a bit lonely, but you know on your phone there's a whole world full of girls you could be looking at, homie.
Come on! That's just part one. I need that part two. But this is going to be a little break. Coffee break. You need to stretch out your neck. You know, I'll do this as a reaction, but this won't be already serious. So, hello! This is going to not be really a serious
Money.
reaction.
Money. What I would do with 1 billion money. Corporatocracy is a system where economic, political, and judicial processes are determined by a corporation. That is Cyberpunk 2077. That is us. Almost every major world event is backed by companies that have the billions to fund however they want the world to turn out, like Chevron's multiple decade streak in funding climate disinformation, ExxonMobil, which is the largest U.S. oil and gas company that has spent gobs of bread to prevent climate change research while also using their infinite fortune to fight impending environmental regulations, which is funny as they're one of the largest polluters on Earth. And BlackRock profiting off everything Israel does under the sun, like the Jenna. Whoa, YouTube! I was talking about comical Redbubble artist Genocide. I can understand where the confusion came in. I'm really sorry about that. It won't happen again. Every day that we stray from Cyberpunk's release date, we inch a little closer towards actually living in it, and right now the gap between the wealthy versus the poor and vulnerable is bigger than it has ever been. It makes me wonder, what company is the closest to being the in real life equivalent to the evil megacorp Arasaka from Cyberpunk, and what companies on our big beautiful green earth are the most ruthless? In this video, I'm going to be going over the contenders for Arasaka's greatest larpers, to figure out which horrendously villainous and unethical corporation deserves a spot right beside my friend Saburo. But first, what is Arasaka? How do they operate? Why are they corrupt? And if you already have a good idea of what Arasaka is, you can be a dirty part skipper and jump straight to part 3. Arasaka is the largest megacorp in the Cyberpunk franchise, with their main goal being to control the world. They manufacture pretty much everything from weapons, cyberware, children's toys, computers, vehicles, etc., and have the largest private security force in the world that's used to assist business operations, provide security for other corporations that they most likely want to take over, and they also have a habit of experimenting on anybody they can, including in the world that's used to assist business operations, provide security for other corporations that they most likely want to take over, and they also have a habit of experimenting on anybody they can, including hiring employees for their own company by archiving their soul into Arasaka Heaven for unrestricted access to their identity. Aside from security and manufacturing, they also deal in banking. So yeah, they have their fingers in everything. From this list of things, we can deduce that Arasaka loves the invasion of different regions, no matter the cost, for their own gain, violating human rights, and influence over global politics. These aspects of what make a corporation corrupt will all heavily influence where these upcoming corporate monsters will fit on the Arasaka meter, and starting with my favorite company of all time, and well, honestly, a bit of inspiration. Nestle is a multinational Swiss food, drink, and health corporation that is, unlike a few of the entries in this video, extremely recognizable. They own everything: Kit Kats, DiGiorno, Hot Pocket, Starbucks, Homebrew, Nature's Bounty, among many other common brands. Even though Arasaka is extremely recognizable, they own everything: Kit Kats, DiGiorno, Hot Pocket, Starbucks, Homebrew, Nature's Bounty, among many other common brands. Even though Arasaka is heavily involved in armed activity, they are also the mega corporation. Their entire brand is built on wiping out the competition and forcing the globe to rely on them by being bold or straight up lying. This is Nestle's desk side gospel. After the Industrial Revolution, where a lot of women started running from home but chasing that bag, there was a massive rise in baby formula, where companies tried to sell their own substitutes for breast milk. And during the 1960s, Nestle aggressively pushed their formula in third world countries to make sure that people.
Oh yeah. Oh, the new era of industrialization. So the people need to get food. Baby milk. This is gonna be about the most mass genocides of children in history. Probably all at once in history. Through the starvation of millions of babies. I think 1 to 10 million babies. All I want.
I say aggressive is to make sure that people drank their substitute for breast milk instead of the real shit from their mom's boob, which they marketed as the unhealthier option. When I say aggressive
and did it right when, and did it just long enough that their mother's milk stops. So they have to buy. They were giving this shit out for free. And used doctors, everything, to do it for free. But it's the free part stops the second the average mother loses their ability to produce milk. After a while, they don't get the milk out because you fed your baby using Nestle. And once they did that, there's a price tag. It was also to sell off all the extra baby formula, which is more unhealthy than natural breast milk. Doing that, you kill millions.
I mean, Nestle had salespeople stationed in hospitals dressed as nurses to push their product. The reason why Nestle was able to get away with this is because education in third world countries, especially in the 60s and 70s, is and was not nearly as accessible as it is in the West and other parts of the world. So when a mom fresh out of giving birth sees somebody who looks like a doctor come up to her like, hey, you should try our product, and she's seeing double and shit, obviously she's gonna listen to that. Despite boycotts in the 70s and Nestle initially pulling away from the milk nurse infinite money glitch, they started doing this thing again in the 90s around Pakistan. So like I said, Nestle takes a lot of notes from Arasaka in a sense that they absolutely love targeting underdeveloped countries. Nestle's breast milk hustle and the way they went about it is very similar to how Arasaka targets developing states by giving them free military protection, and after the state begins to disassemble their own security in favor of Arasaka's donation, that's when Arasaka hikes up the maintenance fees and forces the region to fully rely on them. Not only did Nestle do this with their baby formula by spiking the prices up after others began to buy into their inferior feeding option, but Nestle also to this day puts excessive amounts of sugar in their products in less wealthy countries to make the locals addicted to it, while in Europe, those same products are sugar-free. Arasaka also has a reputation for depleting resources like it's nobody's biz. During the Fourth Corporate War, Arasaka and those same products are... Nestle also to this day puts excessive amounts of sugar in their...
Again, sugar is just the modern age crack. If you want to describe all the unhealthiness of today, there's like three major things, but sugar is one. Fundamentally, sugar, consuming too much sugar, and especially sugar from non-natural foods, is a major portion of why people are so unhealthy these days.
Products in less wealthy countries to make the locals addicted to it, while in Europe, those same products are
Because of course the white people wouldn't put crack in their food. You put the crack in the black people's food. You put the crack in those niggers' foods. That's what they do. They don't like the idea of water to be a human right, but they agree with the U.S. government. So the U.S. government doesn't agree food is a human right.
Arasaka also has a reputation for depleting resources like it's nobody's biz. During the Fourth Corporate War, Arasaka and Militech were engaged in chemical warfare so ruthless that it left enormous plots of wasteland around Earth. As a result, Arasaka takes advantage of these destroyed or poor areas by siphoning their water for cheap, using it for their own markets that it left enormous plots of wasteland around for depleting resources like it's nobody's biz. During the Fourth Corporate War, Arasaka and Militech were engaged in chemical warfare so ruthless that it left enormous plots of wasteland around Earth. As a result, Arasaka takes advantage of these destroyed or poor areas by siphoning their water for cheap, using it for their own market ventures, and forcing the population to rely on imported synthetic corporate products just to survive. Nestle pumps water specifically in places where it will be cheap to do so, like in third world countries and indigenous reservations, like how Grand River Indigenous Reserve in Ontario had no water and caused a mass wave of health issues because Nestle was operating there until 2021 for virtually no dollars. The worst part is that since these places are sucked dry of water resources, some of the locals have to rely on Nestle to get their sustenance through their bottled water. The CEO of Nestle dropped a famous banger back in the day that really outlines Nestle's perspective on humanity and resources when the CEO said that the idea of water being a human right is politically extreme. Okay, now that's already pretty bad. I mean,
your life is politically extreme because the billionaire hates that you fight for your rights. Of course, he's saying water is political.
Water not being a human right, come on, but child slavery. And not even a history of child slavery. I mean, right now, modern day child slavery. Little comparative rundown though, Arasaka had a history of holding children. Not even a history of child slavery. I mean, that's already pretty bad. I mean, water not being a human right, come on, but child slavery. And not even a history of child slavery. I mean, right now, modern day child slavery. Little comparative.
Oh, come on, slavery never ended. We all know that. That's the obvious fact. Obvious fact. Not even in third world nations. You know, I think. Oh yeah. In our U.S. Constitution, in the amendment to eliminate slavery, slavery had one good little loophole, and except for incarceration, if you're incarcerated, you could be enslaved, and that was the loophole they got. I just found out some people didn't even know this fact. They didn't even know that was a loophole they used in the Constitution. I mean, they still use that.
Arasaka had a history of holding children with high potential in these facilities where they would train to be net runners, and if they didn't meet the requirements, they were often killed in that position. A lot of dialogue also suggests that Arasaka owns plenty of sweatshops facilities where they would train to be net runners, and if they didn't meet the requirements, they were often killed in that. A lot of dialogue also suggests that Arasaka owns plenty of sweatshops to manufacture goods for cheap labor, so as a company, they are plantations on the Ivory Coast, but they do supply them with farming equipment and funding in exchange for cocoa for their chocolate products. They do this because developing nation while reaping big game slavery, and Nestle knows about this. They'll send representatives from the company quite often. That's why in 2005, 6 tried to sue Nestle because they were trafficked into the industry as children and claimed that Nestle themselves assisted their entry into their forced new life on the Ivory Coast. But in 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court dropped a United States classic and ruled 8-1 in favor of Nestle because U.S. laws generally don't apply overseas. I swear to God, man, America is the national manifestation of that kid at recess who called to you whenever you were about to catch them. Anyway, for Nestle because U.S. laws generally don't apply overseas.
Yeah, that only applies though when it doesn't get benefit to U.S. companies. Trust me, U.S. laws are universal in application. U.S. law, look at me. The U.S. legal system is universal in application. Nowhere on earth is the U.S. legal system not universal. Why? One of the most latest examples, they kidnapped the president of Venezuela. There's several things where they're supposed to be sovereign protected. That effectively eliminates any excuse of we don't have any legal restriction.
I swear to God, man, America is the national manifestation of that kid at recess who would call tea whenever you were about to catch them. Anyways, to this day, Nestle exploits the Ivory Coast and may never face proper justice for it. Even after the first lawsuit closed, the second one opened by 8 more Malian men who claimed they were trafficked into the industry as children. Yet these people were once again shut down because the operations happened overseas. On a scale of good to evil, it's fucking evil. Okay, I'm not going to deny that, but on an important Arasaka meter, I think Nestle deserves a crisp 6, maybe a 6.5, only because they lap the Japanese pizzazz and military control of Arasaka. But they do love targeting developing nations and child labor, so don't undermine the 6. Okay, a 6 is still pretty Arasaka, just not.
Yeah, Nestle. It's hard to be literally Arasaka because you partly have to basically have standing military. Most companies basically don't have any high amounts of military force.
Arasaka enough, which is why they're at the start of this video. Amazon was founded in 1994 by Jeff Bezos as an online marketplace for selling books, but since has amassed a revenue of $716 billion. Amazon is everywhere as in, sure, the objects in our house that we ordered off the site or the official hardware that listens to our conversations, but they also run Amazon Web Services, which hosts 30% of the online market. They basically take up so much space and continue to expand so that eventually the internet won't be able to function without them. So yeah, everywhere. And everywhere also means Israel! Yeah! Arasaka started as a manufacturer, but eventually evolved into a global defense corporate monster by signing security contracts. Arasaka was not taught what laws there are. Arasaka does not care about how unethical their schemes are. They simply care about control. And Project Nimbus is pretty damn cheeky. In 2024, Google, Amazon, and Israel signed a $1.2 billion deal that gave Israel its own cloud infrastructure for its military and AI. Well, this is already questionable with respect to members of the UN acknowledging Israel's army gunning down a ton of civilians for the hell of it. The cloud services itself allows for face and object detection. Plus, law restrictions and terms of service agreements of what AI can do have been tweaked or outright evaded for Israel's benefit and a fatter paycheck for Amazon and Google. But sure, giving Netanyahu a good teether every now and then isn't anything out of the ordinary for massive corporations, but lying? It's pretty dystopian that a company called Amazon is responsible for so much pollution that it sweeps, or more accurately, gas-powered leaf blows right under the rug. While companies are supposed to document the emissions they put into the atmosphere, Amazon only accounts for 1% of what they actually produce, as they report the environmental costs of official Amazon products, but nothing else. So when companies like Target report the emissions of what they produce and even the effects their products will have on the earth after they've already sold, they take a comparative hit when fake-ass Amazon sells so much more material than them, but reports a smaller carbon footprint because all these basics over here want another shiny quarter. And this isn't even the worst of Amazon's pollutive hit on our big brown mother. The data centers that Amazon used to support their AI models and servers have already created a noticeable dent in the environment's health. With Amazon settling a lawsuit over a data center in Oregon containing the groundwater in the area, and the emissions that these centers are pushing have caused crazy harm, with Amazon pumping 8.25 million metric tons of carbon dioxide in 2024 alone. Arasaka is no stranger to polluting the earth, and Amazon's moving like a Mr. Beast copycat because, like Arasaka, Amazon also pumps way too much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, contaminates way too much groundwater, spouts 1 quintillion metric tons of lies, and as for the people working for them, well, the truth is out. Amazon has a really groundwater, spouts 1 quintillion metric tons of lies, and as for the people working for them, well,
a poor person is taking the break.
well, the truth is out. Amazon has a really bad history with upholding basic human rights. I'll let Jeff Bezos do the narrating for this part. Money! Give me money! Give me money! Give me money! Over in Asia, Amazon has operated pretty damn terribly, with an incident reported in 2023 where people were obligated to pay an upwards of $1,500 for a recruitment fee. And after that, were put to work in these hyper-monitored abusive warehouses, where, for example, one person reported breaking their arm and booked a month off to recover, but was forced to return to the job after only 2 weeks. And many people reported that they suspected a possibility of human trafficking. Granted, Amazon has reimbursed some of the workers, and that is something that Arasaka would never do. But in the grand scheme of things, Amazon as a whole is freaking weird. They've in the past done many union crackdowns to, make sure those damn lefty workers don't try taking a break or something. And the example
a union, they might start to believe of collective power. They may start to believe they should talk. A billionaire never lets their employees talk. They aren't supposed to. They're pigs to be slaughtered. For shareholder value.
Used before came from Saudi Arabia, but around the globe, Amazon warehouses have been compared to working in sweatshops. With Amazon treating workers as disposable and openly being more violent in countries its governments will permit it, I think Amazon is a lot like Arasaka. So even though I believe that Amazon is a little less evil than Nestle, I conclude that they deserve an 8 out of 10 on the Arasaka meter because of their influence, their history of human rights violations, the amount of carbon they put into the atmosphere, and their unsettling reign of surveillance. Yeah, right. Amazon's Alexa and Ring cameras have been proven to record full conversations, and in one insane case actually sent a conversation between a husband and wife to a random number. Also, fun fact, at one point Amazon sold a guide to being a pedophile on their website and refused to take it down because it would violate free speech. Only after bajillion protests did they finally take a guide to being a pedophile on their website.
I mean, hey. But I mean, we definitely know who's on the finals. Jeff, they were definitely best friends. 2 Jeffs together. I'm just saying. 2 Jeffs.
And refused to take it down because it would violate free speech. Only after a bajillion protests did they finally take it down, but yeah, pretty crazy that happened. So Gas prices are pretty high, huh? Unlike Nestle and Amazon, Shell isn't exactly a corporate giant. I mean, they're massive, but not on the scale that Amazon or Nestle is. But in the 90s, a bunch of people went up against Shell for sucking oil out of Nigeria and polluting the earth. So they killed them. Due to Shell's business in Nigeria, the Ogoni people began non-violent protests. Shell's infrastructure was extremely lazy, so the soil and air was taking huge hits from the repeated oil operations. So naturally, in response to the locals not wanting a corporate oil giant to suck out all the resources and pollute the land, Shell would routinely fund the military and police to slaughter the protesters, and there's even evidence revealing that Shell would target whole-ass villages that were under suspicion of protesting. Despite documents surfacing in 2009 proving that Shell was behind a long list of attacks on innocent people, they have claimed mostly innocent and paid $15.5 million in total to some select families that may have been affected. Because Shell is not Arasaka levels of big, I feel they don't.
They don't even give $1 billion. Truly a company. But it's an oil company.
Don't deserve a spot too high on the Arasaka meter, but this is some corporate nonsense that Arasaka would 1000% get behind, as they have been shown in many writings to slam out anybody who speaks out against them, especially those who have no chance of forming a strong resistance, like random Nigerian civilians. For the murders of way too many innocent protesters,
Well, I most likely think it's going to be either BlackRock or some military company. U.S. military. Those are the ones with the largest level of corporate military influence or just corporate influence.
because I am going to give Shell a healthy 5 out of 10 on the Arasaka meter. But this next one?
Please, let me join your fleet, Cap.
Save it. You can't even pass level 2.
Hold on, I just found a solar panel and passed level 67.
Total fluke. You're gonna get completely wrecked.
Equip Mac, boom, level 999.
I'm wiping the whole space clean.
This is a good one.
BlackRock is often thrown around as the most evil company in the whole world. And while I think it's debatable if they are the most evil, they certainly like being a stepping stone or staircase to hell for evil. BlackRock is the world's largest investment corporation that holds over $10 trillion worth of assets. BlackRock is in charge of so much money that if you put Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg up next to it on a chart, you know, those guys were always way up there in those comparison videos on TikTok. Well, now look at them. Oh, they're so cute. Hey, little guy. As a company, BlackRock is pretty different than Arasaka, because while Arasaka manufactures things, has a private military, and is in charge of global finance, BlackRock acts more as an economic pillar for thousands of companies and invests in manufacturers, militaries, and banks. Okay, but first let's get some facts out of the way. BlackRock is often mistaken for Blackstone, which is a private equity firm that's infamous for buying up bunches of houses at once and then putting them up for rent. Companies screwing the housing economy like this has made it harder for your regular Joe to buy a house. And even though BlackRock, in my opinion, isn't terribly ethical, they are not Blackstone and are not tickling the market like this, despite the common misconception. But they are cheeky in their own funny ways. Now, me, I like big BlackRock as much as the next guy, but criticism where criticism is due, because of the amount of money that they are responsible for, not owned, but responsible for, they have an insane amount of influence over the market and conveniently invest and work with companies that do horrible shit. They have billion-dollar shares with Lockheed Martin and almost every other defense and weapons company, so when wars break out and military spending goes up, for example, Israeli military ventures, they win it big because they have shares in a bajillion Israeli projects. They also have billions invested in oil and deforestation projects, which is kind of a new low for them because previously they were pretty environmentalist in some respects. In 2021, BlackRock used its voting power to support 47% of environmental and shareholder resolutions, but by 2025, they supported less than 2%. This is a bit of a struggle to put on the Arasaka meter because BlackRock has crazy influence. They are the financial backbone for a lot of companies, but because of their lack of private army and the fact that they don't really do anything themselves other than handle money and fund fascism, I think BlackRock deserves a 5 out of 10 on the Arasaka meter, simply because they do still have plenty of influence, but just not like our buddies over at A-Town. But speaking of A-Town, Night City residents are always at risk of Arasaka stealing their souls and storing them onto chips. Chips for short-term storage, but more accurately Mikoshi, which is a digital prison for anybody Arasaka can get their hands on, from important figures to corporate rivals. The goal is so that human beings will continue to be owned by the corporation after their death. And if any company deserves to be compared to Arasaka when it comes to data harvesting, it's Meta. I struggle to find where I should even start with this company. Meta, or as most people know it, Facebook, started in the early 2000s, and its skeleton sprouted directly from violating human privacy. In 2003, when the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, was attending Harvard University, he created the website FaceMash, which hosted a collection of student profiles, and the user of the website was tasked to rate which student was hotter than the other. This website didn't directly become Facebook, but it was the creative framework of it. And today, Facebook, or Meta, owns Instagram, WhatsApp, Beat Games, Ray-Ban, and Threads, for the 2 people who actually use it. Because everybody and their waifus have profiles on these platforms, Facebook has a lot of access to user information. And to be fair, a lot of platforms have access to your information, but it's the way they handle it that determines how evil they are. Meta is fucked. The first instance
Meta is the information stealer of the world.
of suspicious happenings from Meta stems from the Cambridge Analytica data breach. In 2014, Cambridge Analytica, whose CEO was Trump's former advisor, by the way, hired a data scientist to create an app called This Is Your Digital Life. This Is Your Digital Life promoted users to complete a survey with the bonus of receiving a small payment. Several 100,000 Facebook users completed the quiz and got their data scraped, including the data of their Facebook friends. Facebook allowed the developer to share the data collected back to Cambridge Analytica, which used the data of 50 million plus people to create personalized ads that would stand out to possible voters during the Brexit and Trump campaigns by exploiting their views. Granted, this isn't something that Facebook did themselves. It was only something that Facebook let happen, and they faced heavy repercussions. However, Facebook isn't a stranger to exploiting way too much personal information themselves. Since as far back as 2009, Facebook has given emails, documents, and virtually all information of user profiles to the U.S. National Security Agency. In 2019, it was found that around 500 million people's information was on Amazon.
You cannot let any down among America. Remember, America's government isn't for the people, it's for the corporation. It's for
a source straight from Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg is a huge fan of selling information to other companies, like how it was found that Netflix and Spotify have direct access to everybody's private messages through Meta platforms. And even if you don't have a Facebook profile, Meta will still create a shadow profile for you if they have the ability to. A shadow profile isn't a literal profile like one might have on Facebook, but is instead a collection of info grabbed without the user's consent that Facebook links to a question mark person. So if you, for example, use the like button on a third-party site or connect your email address with Meta-associated platforms, Facebook can find your search habits, your likes, your dislikes, and the information of people linked to your email and internet life. Meta collects the data of these potential future users, stores it, and capitalizes off of it. Okay, so Meta steals data. What else is new? It's a corporation, for God's sake. It's a miracle if a company doesn't steal your data. But as for Meta's platforms themselves, they behave in an extremely dystopian way to manipulate those who use their apps. As most people know, Instagram and Facebook operate in a way that encourages conflict to make sure that everybody engages with their feed to the most of their ability. As if you see something you like, you probably won't comment. But if you see the 814th post of the most obscene, insensitive thing you'll ever lay your eyes on,
when people ask me why I don't think we should allow illegal immigration in our country,
you'll probably want to put your 2 cents in. On the surface,
why I don't think we should allow illegal immigration in our country,
you'll probably want to put your 2 cents in. On the surface, this doesn't look like a Meta problem and more like a traditional algorithm issue. I mean, every app wants people to engage, and naturally we will engage with things that piss us off. But for a while, Facebook and Instagram had a fact-checking policy to ensure that even if rage bait was posted, it wasn't misinformation. After Zuckerberg realized that right-wing propaganda, which generates mass amounts of interaction because of how on the nose it is, was actually fake information a lot of the time and got flagged by the fact-checker, they removed the service altogether. And I'm not even biased.
You gotta get the most profitable. You gotta lose the most profitable information.
It's genuinely why they removed the fact check feature.
Because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. We're going to get rid of fact checkers. We're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas.
So now Meta's platforms are a cesspool of hate speech and fake information because Meta doesn't care about a reliable platform. They care about a profitable one.
You're not going to see an American doing this. This is a fucking, I'm almost positive, an illegal immigrant. Well, because look at him, he's fucking brown.
Additionally, to ensure that its platform
is a fucking, I'm almost positive an illegal immigrant. Well, because look at him, he's fucking brown.
Additionally, to ensure that its platform continued to fuel anger, Meta removed the bans they had previously established on things like comparing women to objects, immigrants to infest anybody under the LGBTQ+ umbrella as immoral or sinful. Not doing anything about an algorithm is one thing, but misinformation is crazy. Facebook does take full advantage of human discount services have on teenagers, yet they use these studies to make their algorithm even stronger instead of trying to fix it. But even though they're terrible, I wonder if this can even be counted as an Arasaka trait. On one hand, Arasaka's Soul Killer program is meant to store people. Profiles not just built up of what people want to show, but almost everything about them, their likes, their dislikes, their searches. It's a platform with the purpose of advertising a person, not their identity. But when it comes to considering comparison of Arasaka and Meta based on the literal internet alone, Arasaka doesn't really run any social media platforms, and they're more of a physical force than a mental one. I'd argue Amazon is more Arasaka because of how much they rely on cheap labor, and Meta workers are actually paid pretty well. But for this video, I've taken a lot of research from articles and employee statements written over the years, but a former employee of Meta recently came out to talk about their experience, and it fueled a flame that caused many workers to come out and talk about Meta's brutal internal design. Meta has recently laid off 8,000 workers, 10% of their company, for AI to replace them. A lot of these workers basically dug their own grave as they were required to train the AI, and once their work was done, it snatched their position. This shit alone is so cyberpunk, and a prime example of how working for Meta is corporate Total Drama Island. Your mouse is tracked, your clicks are tracked, and there is extreme pressure to log everything that you do during the day that gives everybody on the team competitive work-based performance anxiety. Your loyalty to the company does not matter. Layoffs are completely random, as there's pretty much zero prep time for when you lose your job. As a result of this horrendous mega surveillance culture, Meta is naturally very anti-union so that people can't be compensated for enduring the Zuckerberg model. It is clear that humans in every aspect, consumer, worker, are nothing but disposable tools for Meta, and they barely try to hide it.
As much profit from it.
You, just you, building your app on Base 44.
For Meta's unapologetic surveillance, data collection, and influence, I'm going to give them a 7.5 on the Arasaka meter. The reason why they're not higher is because Arasaka is all about wiping out the competition, and Facebook shares data and cooperates with so many different corporations, it's hard to affiliate them with the same Arasaka level aggression, but the influence on public opinion and the way they treat their workers is dystopian as zuck. At one point in time, our own real-world Arasaka did in fact exist. It was a company that made the workers want to off themselves. It had its own private army, it conquered states, fought corporate wars, and enacted so much terror, reaping crazy profit from it. This corporate superpower was the British East India Company. Before Arasaka became a megacorp, they started out by manufacturing weapons for the Japanese army in World War II, and the British East India Company also had modest beginnings as they began their corporation with the intentions of trading spices. After being granted the privilege
learning from the British East India Company, it's less like a company in the way we traditionally get it, and more like a state-sanctioned company, a state-controlled company, mostly because of how much the government manages and controls each and every one of the actions. And once they were not useful, they quickly dissolved.
With Queen Elizabeth I in 1600, the British would voyage to the East Indies to trade. These expeditions were very risky, so members of the general population were allowed to invest in the East India Company, and whenever they would return with insane spice trade money, the investors would get a percentage back. These were called joint stock companies. And all was going pretty smoothly until the Dutch East India Company fucking ravaged them. The Dutch East India was a way larger and far more powerful corporation that was also profiting from the spice trade and did not want the British dipping their grubby hands in their monopoly. Furthermore, the Dutch government gave their company unrestricted right to warfare to protect their profits. So when the Dutch discovered, after torturing a Japanese mercenary about the East India Company trying to overthrow the Dutch governor, they commenced what is known today as the Amboina Massacre, which was a series of executions that occurred on Ambon Island. So yeah, the Dutch were pissed, but the thing is, the British and the other competitors of the Dutch East India Company were absolutely not trying to overthrow them, as they did not have a smidgen of the power to do so. All of the merchants in the area were unarmed. Like, even if they wanted to Rust-style spear and rock them, that never would have worked. The torturing and killing of the suspects was just the Dutch trying to regain full control of the nutmeg and clove market. And it worked, as the British East India Company said, hell no, and scurried over to India, which they fortunately already began trading with before the massacre, for silk, cotton, indigo dye, and saltpeter, which is an active ingredient used for gunpowder. Things. The Mughal Empire ruled almost the entire subcontinent of India in the 1600s, and the East India Company knelt before the for European silver. The EIC could also protect the Mughal pilgrim ships from pirates or potential Dutch army fleet, which was a benefit to both parties, as the Mughal army was infamously helpless in sea combat, as they didn't have any proper large open water ships, and the British were looking for any opportunity to finally get back at the Dutch. After years of petty cooperation from the Mughal Empire, the East India Company got cocky for some fucking reason. Because the EIC was a handful of factories in the Mughal Empire, the East India Company got cocky and decided to wage war on them for some fucking reason. Because the EIC was a handful of factories operating within the Mughal Empire, they got for a second time absolutely destroyed and had to literally beg with their hands tied behind their backs in front of Emperor Aurangzeb for forgiveness, which surprisingly he entertained, as all the British had to do was promise to behave and pay a fine of a few modern-day $1 million. Afterwards, they got all their factories back. Unfortunately for Emperor Aurangzeb, though, he died. So the Mughal Empire fractured from different people trying to become rulers and some states declaring independence, and the East India Company took full advantage of the chaos and began conquering India. I think it is absolutely crazy that it wasn't the British government that colonized India, but instead a British corporation. And the East India Company didn't stop there. The East India Company had a score to settle. 1757 marked a new era for the East India Company when they took over India's wealthiest province, Bengal. With their newfound Bengal military power that at its peak, 1857 marked a new era for the East India Company when they took over India's wealthiest province, Bengal. With their newfound Bengal military power that at its peak exceeded the size of the actual British army, they weren't just going to forget what the Dutch had done to them over 100 years prior. In 1759, the puppet ruler of Bengal that the British had put in place was desperate to escape the leadership of the East India Company and secretly called upon the Dutch to drive them out. On some Joseph Joestar bullshit, the British commander at the time knew this was going to happen, and the British were able to not only intercept the Dutch, but also win the battle in less than 30 minutes, among various other incidents that left the Dutch with their pants soiled and their nutmeg at the bottom of the ocean. Aside from what was, in my opinion, one of the craziest revenge arcs of all time, the East India Company was fucking diabolical and the greatest example of what a corporation disconnected from state regulations and human decency can pull off for money. I mean, they were Arasaka. When they took over Bengal and got a stronger military, they forced the locals to stop growing food and instead grow products that the company could sell, like opium poppies and indigo. They also forced the Bengal population to pay higher land taxes, and eventually, Bengal faced didn't have any food, which resulted in the starvation and death of 10 million people. And it didn't stop there. The East India Company went to the famine-riddled villages and forced the locals to pay the taxes of their dying neighbors so that stock prices wouldn't go down. And it didn't stop there. The East India Company also traded with China and would come back with a ton of tea, but the British didn't have anything that the Chinese wanted. So they had to stop and think, what's something that everybody wants? Oh, drugs. The EIC would force starving farmers to grow opium poppies.
Again, learning from this, I actually found it was actually more closer to state-sanctioned company, how we think of it. So, the British government is more directly involved with this than
make opium and discreetly send it over to China, which caused an enormous addiction crisis. But because they were addicted, they were obviously opium. When the Chinese government finally cracked down on the opium crisis, British gunships showed up and forced them to legalize the narcotic and even took over Hong Kong. There was so much stuff that the East India Company did, from slave trade, mass torture, war, among other abysmal business adventures, that I cannot cover for the sake of this chapter not being like half of the video. But when I think about Arasaka wiping out corporate competition and Arasaka torturing people into submission, it is one-to-one with how the East India Company operated before the Indian Rebellion. I believe the East India Company deserves a 9 out of 10 on the Arasaka. They lack the Japanese aura and cyberpunk aesthetic, as this company existed like 152 to 426 years ago. Now you guys are probably thinking, just one end, there are so many other evil corporations that you've forgotten to talk about. Clearly, you are another American content creator funded by Israel, which is wrong. I'm a Canadian content creator funded by Israel. Palantir Technology offers surveillance systems for ICE in the United States. The surveillance systems in question are designed to track dangerous criminals, when in reality they just give ICE insane amounts of information on literally any immigrant. Their visa history, their address, their social media activity. With the Trump administration in power, there is nothing short of an ethnic cleanse going on in the United States.
It's in their genes, and we got a lot of bad genes in our country right now.
And Palantir is the backbone of what makes it possible for ICE to find their next victim. Not only is Palantir funded by the government, but the CEO, Alex Karp, is all for here is the backbone of what makes it possible for ICE to find their next victim. Not only is Palantir funded by the government, but the CEO, Alex Karp, is all for warfare tech development. 6 out of 10 on the Arasaka meme. OpenAI, AI, 11 out of 10. Nintendo. I put Nintendo in the honorable mentions because on my what company is the most evil poll, I got a few comments saying Nintendo. You know, I know everybody is like, Nintendo is the worst, most terrible company in the world, but personally, I just think they're extremely anti-consumer, which isn't good by any means. They kill fan projects, lock exclusives to their own consoles, go after content creators because of how they use their property, but compared to Nestle, Meta, and Amazon, are we being for real right now? Tesla has faced multiple lawsuits due to the unreliability of their heavily advertised autopilot feature that has on multiple occasions violated traffic laws, like running red lights or merging into oncoming traffic, and has even been the cause of some fatal vehicle accidents. Many also know that Tesla has a lot of them supporting it.
Oh, thank you, Elon.
you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. Right? No, you're a bigger idiot. No, you're an even bigger idiot. Right? That's not an argument as far as the logicians. That's just people yelling at each other. An argument is a structure of proposition. If the one person had said, no, you are an idiot because,
which has naturally led to mass discrimination in the workplace. Many black workers have reported blatant racism, but hey, it makes sense because the CEO is none other than the giga racist. Also, in fact, confirmed by way too many women, asked them to bear his children. This company is so dystopian. And I cannot believe, also, in fact, confirmed by way too many women, asked them to bear his children. This company is...
Yeah. Billionaires are so crazy with some of their hobbies. You know?
So dystopian. And I cannot believe this shit comes out of it. Purple, 7 out of 10. Blackwater, no gunsmiths, 0 out of 10. Blackwater was a private military company for the United States that killed a lot of innocent people. It's 7 out of 10. Blackwater, no gunsmiths, 0 out of 10. Blackwater was a private military company for the United States that killed a lot of innocent people. It's rebranded multiple times to escape its past and is now operating as Constellus and is still led by the same guy, Eric Prince. This guy should be in jail. This company should not be allowed to exist. And for private military shenanigans, Blackwater gets a...
Alright, come on. If all those war crimes, every military company should go to jail. I mean, honestly, most of Congress should go to jail. But, I mean, they literally should go to The Hague. But, I mean, they literally planned invasion of... wait, where's The Hague again? Belgium or the Netherlands? If any one of them goes to The Hague for war crimes.
Solid 5 out of 10 on the Arasaka meter. This last honorable mention was a direct inspiration for Arasaka, which was the pre- and post-World War II Japanese corporations. Mitsubishi, Mitsui, and Sumitomo were family-run monopolies with close ties to the Japanese military. In the 80s, Japan faced a major economic boom, and there was a lot of fear in the West of Japanese nationalists taking over the American market, which Arasaka is a fictional manifestation of. Facing major economic corporations. Mitsubishi, Mitsui, and Sumitomo were family-run monopolies with close ties to the Japanese military. In the 80s, Japan faced a major economic boom, and there was a lot of fear in the West of Japanese nationalists taking over the American market, which Arasaka is a fictional manifestation of. Probably because Cyberpunk was written as a tabletop game in the 1980s when this paranoia was at its peak. However, on modern-day Earth, there exists a family-run corporation known for horrendously unethical scandals, with a chairman argued to be more powerful than the president of the country it's based in. Samsung is a South Korean manufacturing conglomerate which holds the crown for being the global leader for smartphones and semiconductors, while also owning 80 different Samsungs, like Samsung Securities, Samsung Life Insurance, Samsung Heavy Industries, Samsung Fire and Marine Insurance, Samsung Electronics. I mean, it's only a matter of time until we get Samsung Reacts. Samsung is run by the Yi family, from Lee Dong-chul to Lee Meng-hee to Lee Kun-hee to Yi. And sure, the company is extremely influential worldwide, but their reign of power primarily rests in South Korea. I mean, their headquarters is located in Samsung Town. The residents and leadership...
Yeah. To specifically describe how much power Samsung has, you can be born up into Samsung and die through Samsung services and live your entire life without ever touching anything not made by Samsung. The vertical integration is that insane. And raised through Samsung education, work in Samsung employment, live in Samsung towns, everything. Basically, there's nearly nothing you could touch, and then you would live your entire life, even to your death, through these mega corporations.
In South Korea are all aware of Samsung's unconventionally large influence. A direct quote from a South Korean presidential candidate summarizes it pretty well. Samsung has the government in its hands. Samsung manages the legal world, the press, the academics, and the bureaucracy. And this is not a stretch, as locals often refer to their own country as the Republic of Samsung. And Samsung's collective revenue continuously makes up 13 to 20% of South Korea's GDP. And to put that into perspective, Amazon makes up about 1.5% of Americans.
Money! You dumb fool!
There's a common saying in South Korea that outlines the omnipresence of the corporation. You can be born in a Samsung hospital, live in a Samsung apartment, and be the subject of a Samsung funeral parlor. A great example of Samsung being above the law was in fact born in a Samsung hospital, live in a Samsung apartment, and be the subject of a Samsung funeral parlor.
Essentially, born in Samsung, live in Samsung, die in Samsung.
Great example of Samsung being above the law was in February of 2017 when the vice chairman, Lee Jae-young, was sentenced to 5 years in prison due to bribery, embezzlement, and hiding assets overseas. It was found that Samsung had spent a total of 43 billion won, or $36 million in bribery, in exchange for the government backing of a controversial merger of two Samsung affiliates, which was extremely important for Lee to move up the corporate ladder. Despite being sent to prison for 5 years, he got out after only 1. However, after a retrial, they tried to get him in for 2.5 more, yet he ended up scot-free after 10 months because he received a presidential pardon. There's a reason why the law stops at the gate of Samsung headquarters is a phrase that Korean political science professors say. Another morbid example of Samsung's unstoppable rage was the 5 decades of illegal union busting they did, and this wasn't wasn't any union busting scheme. They played that shit ranked. For context, under Article 33 of the Constitution of the Republic of Korea, it guarantees workers the 3 labor rights: the right to independent association from the union, the right to collective bargaining to question management, and the right to collective action, the right to strike. Samsung did a few things to get around workers protesting. One thing they did was form ghost unions, which was a company-controlled union that obviously nobody could participate in to get around the law in Korea that prevents multiple unions. So when workers would band together, Samsung could point at the ghost union and make the claim that one already exists. Samsung also conducted mass surveillance over the workers to make sure they weren't getting up to any human rights activities, and if they were probably fired. I think the most bizarre example of...
I mean, we all know what is written on the law and what is actually enforced is a very iffy if. We all should know that by now, right?
Samsung's union busting activities lies in the time they literally stole a guy's corpse. In May of 2014, the 34-year-old union leader Young Ho-suk took his own life in protest of Samsung's rampant union busting and crazy unfair wage activities. He letter that his dying wish was for his fellow union members to keep fighting and not bury him until they had won the battle. Both of Young's parents signed a paper that gave the union permission to hold his body while the protest went on. Samsung did not like this, so they led Young's father with what equates to $550,000 to cancel the wake and break his promise to the union. And unfortunately, still dead set on protecting Young and didn't let his father back out. So as a result, 300 riot police stormed the Seoul Medical Center, so grieving union members, and wheelbarrowed Young's corpse outside the premises. This is probably the most Arasaka thing I have ever heard, and for that, along with the fact that it's a family-run corporation with extreme manufacturing influence and political power, I'm going to give Samsung a crisp 10. If it wasn't for the fact that they're Korean and not Japanese or colonizers, I would probably give them a 10. But what do you guys think about all this?
Yeah, good point. First thing I gotta say, it's disappointing to even the father who betrayed even the promise. And only for $500,000. Think about it. You're disrespecting the dead. At least get that shit. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. Unless they were threatening his life or his family life. Get at least $10 million. $10 million in that shit. And also, here's the state power. This is why the state, remember, isn't working for you. It's to monopolize violence in collecting for the rich.
So what corporation do you think is the most like Arasaka, and what corporation do you think is the most evil? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll check them out as soon as I possibly can. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and make sure...
One, two, three, four. Woo! I feel refreshed. Ooh! the end of the coffee. So I had peace. We will be doing a part 2 in about 30 minutes. I took